Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. You know, there was one moment in April 2026 that made the entire world stop and say, wait, is he even human? Jimin, Park Jimin, a man who for years has proven himself to be one of the greatest performers of his generation, back on stage. Not just any stage. This is the BTS World Tour Arirang, the largest K-pop world tour in history, and Jimin performed like he never left. In this video, we are going to break down exactly why Jimin's performances at the Arirang World Tour 2026 are being called the greatest of his entire career as a live performer. From Goyang to the Tokyo Dome, from old anthems exploding back to life, to a handwritten letter that brought 55,000 people to tears inside a stadium. Ready? Because this is not a regular review. This is a tribute to a star who is currently burning at the peak of his brilliance. Before we talk about Jimin specifically, we need to set the scene, because the scale of what's happening here matters enormously. BTS had just returned after nearly 4 years away. Every member completed their mandatory military service in South Korea, and on March 20th, 2026, their fifth studio album, Arirang, was officially released. The album became an immediate global phenomenon. It sat at number 1 on the Billboard 200 for 2 consecutive weeks, and its lead single, Swim, shot straight to the top of the Hot 100. Then came the announcement that the entire K-pop world had been waiting for. BTS World Tour Arirang, more than 85 shows across 34 cities, spanning 23 countries on 5 continents. This is not just the biggest K-pop tour ever staged. This is one of the biggest music tours anywhere on the planet in 2026. The tour launched on April 9th, 2026 at Goyang Stadium in South Korea, which holds 41,000 fans, and tickets, of course, sold out within minutes. Think about the weight of that moment. For years of silence, the expectations of the entire world, millions of ARMY who had been waiting with tears and prayers. And in the middle of all of that, Jimin stood under the lights and did the one thing he has always known how to do. He performed with everything he had. The opening night at Goyang Stadium is a moment that no one who was there will ever forget. When BTS first walked onto the stage, 41,000 fans erupted in a roar that shook the sky. But there was one thing that dominated every conversation after the concert ended, and that was Jimin's voice. Korean netizens were quick to flood social media with reactions that were funny but deeply genuine. The one that went the most viral: Jimin sounds like he's pulling Spotify directly out of his throat. That phrase trended across every platform, and honestly, it was not an exaggeration. During Fire, one of BTS's most physically demanding and high-energy songs, Jimin did something that most performers would consider nearly impossible. He danced at full intensity, while still delivering high notes that filled the entire stadium. Wild choreography, extreme cardio, clearly pushing his breath to its limits. And yet his voice? Clear, powerful, explosive. This is not a surprise for anyone who has followed Jimin for years. But witnessing it again after nearly 4 years away from BTS's stage, seeing him return at the same level, arguably even higher, was something that stopped people in their tracks. And then there was his solo segment. Jimin's solo section in the set list was crafted like an emotional journey, a medley that opened with Like Crazy, the song that in April 2023 became the first solo track by a Korean artist to ever reach number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. He did not simply perform the song. He inhabited it. He delivered it with an emotional depth that felt entirely different from the recorded version. Warmer, more present, more human. The thing that has always set Jimin apart from so many other performers is his ability to make every single person in a stadium feel like the song is being sung just for them. Not for a crowd of thousands, but for each individual in that room. At Goyang, he did exactly that. If Goyang was the fire, then the Tokyo Dome was where the sky actually broke open. On April 17th and 18th, 2026, BTS returned to Japan after 7 years away. The Tokyo Dome, one of the most iconic concert venues in the world, was packed to capacity with 110,000 fans across 2 sold-out nights. And once again, Jimin was the name everyone was talking about. First, the visuals. Jimin appeared with longer blonde hair than he'd had at Goyang, and fans immediately compared him to the protagonist of a manga comic. This is Jimin at his most intentional, Someone who understands that every detail of his physical presentation feeds the energy of the show. The look, the movement, the presence, it all works together like one cohesive piece of art. But what truly stole the night was, again, his voice. During Crystal Snow, a Japanese language song that was added as a surprise in the day one set order, Jimin delivered vocals that Korean media described as a stardust tone, a quality so delicate and luminous that the entire Tokyo Dome fell into a kind of reverent silence. Picture that. 55,000 people on the first night, all of them going quiet because of one human voice. Then during Fire, once more, a song that demands extraordinary physical output. Even as his breathing grew heavy from the intensity of the choreography, Jimin launched into high notes that filled every corner of the Tokyo Dome. The crowd exploded. Several fans broke into tears, not simply from emotion, but because they were witnessing something genuinely rare in the entertainment world, a performer who gives 100% of himself even when his body is at its absolute limit. And then came the moment Tokyo had been waiting for, the handwritten letter. At the end of the concert, Jimin read out a letter written in Japanese, in his own hand. He spoke about how long it had been since he last saw Japanese fans. He said he was truly, deeply happy to be back at the Tokyo Dome after 8 years. He expressed his gratitude not as a celebrity addressing his fan base, but as one human being speaking to other human beings who had waited faithfully for his return. The fact that I could come back to the Tokyo Dome after 8 years, that is entirely because of all of you. All 110,000 people who filled that venue across 2 nights cried. The Japanese media's verdict was unanimous. This was not a K-pop concert. This was a performing arts experience at the very highest level. So why Jimin? What is it about him specifically that generates this kind of reaction, at this scale, every single time? The answer comes down to 3 things that he has built over more than a decade of work. The first is his vocal technique, which has never stopped evolving. Jimin is not simply a singer. He is a vocal artist who is always pushing beyond what he has already mastered. During the years BTS was on hiatus, he released 2 solo albums, Face in 2023 and Muse in 2024, and both proved that he was serious about growing outside of his comfort zone. Like Crazy, reached #1 on the Hot 100 in April 2023. Then, Who, from the Muse album, topped the Billboard Global 200 and the Global Excl. US chart for 2 consecutive weeks in August 2024. Jimin is one of only 2 BTS members to have ever reached #1 on the Hot 100, the Global 200, and the Global Excl US charts, and he accomplished it with different songs each time. That is not luck. That is the proof of sustained artistic growth and genuine commercial impact. On the Arirang World Tour stage, all of that growth is audible. His voice is more mature, more rooted, more controlled, yet it still carries the emotional vulnerability that has always been his signature. The second thing is something that live performance analysts and fans have been discussing for years: his ability to sing and dance simultaneously at maximum intensity. Many world-class performers choose to use backing tracks or lip-sync during the most physically demanding choreography. Jimin does not. And it goes beyond simply holding on. He delivers his most explosive notes precisely at the moments when the choreography is most intense. During Fire, which requires sustained high-energy movement with no real breaks, the high notes he launches in between breaths are the kind of thing that makes audiences audibly gasp. The third thing, and perhaps the hardest to quantify, is his emotional authenticity with a crowd. This is not something that can be trained in a year or 2. It is the result of years and years of performing, of failing, of getting back up, and of learning to open himself completely in front of an audience. Jimin is the kind of performer who makes you feel like he is sharing something deeply personal, not performing something. When he read the letter in Tokyo, or when he sang like crazy, with eyes half closed and a voice that trembled with meaning, nobody in that room felt like they were watching a show. They felt like they were part of something much larger than a concert. The Arirang World Tour is not just about numbers, though the numbers are extraordinary. Over 85 shows, 34 cities, 23 countries. Tickets selling out within hours in Korea, North America, and Europe. But the impact reaches far beyond statistics. When Body to Body, the opening track from the Arirang album, which weaves the melody of the traditional Korean folk song Arirang into its fabric, was performed at the Tokyo Dome, something extraordinary happened. 110,000 Japanese fans, the majority of whom do not speak Korean, began singing the Arirang melody together. This was the very moment that HYBE chairman Bang Si-hyuk had predicted would become the most iconic image of this entire tour. And there it was, unfolding exactly as he said it would. As for Jimin specifically, across the tour so far, some of the most viral moments on social media have centered around his performance segments. Hashtags tied to his stage presence have continued trending on X, TikTok, and YouTube. The silky-voiced Jimin clip from the Tokyo Dome spread at a speed that was almost difficult to track. And when Japanese fans chose to put their phones away, something almost unheard of at modern concerts, and simply watched with their eyes and their hearts fully present, Jimin and the other members openly admitted they were moved. That concert culture moment sparked a global conversation about how we experience and honor live performance as an art form. So, why are Jimin's performances at the Arirang World Tour 2026 being called the greatest of his career? Because it is not about one song, or one moment, or one night. It is about an artist who for more than a decade has dedicated his entire life to his craft, then came back after the longest break of his career and performed better than he ever had before. It is about a person who can stand in front of 55,000 or 110,000 people and still make each individual in that crowd feel like he is singing only to them. It is about Park Jimin, a boy from Busan who dreamed of becoming a dancer, who became a solo #1 artist on Billboard's biggest charts, who now stands on the largest stage in K-pop history, proving that every single hour of work he has ever put in was worth it. In the letter he read at the Tokyo Dome, there was one line that was very simple and very deep. I will work even harder to show you more and more beautiful stages. And if what we have witnessed at the Arirang World Tour so far is any indication, every single one of us cannot wait to see what he does next. And that's a wrap on today's video. A full breakdown of Jimin's performances at the BTS Arirang World Tour 2026. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what we drop next. One question for you in the comments. Which Jimin song would you most want to experience live? Drop your answer below. See you in the next one. Stay purple, Army. Purple Heart.